Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CLSR. And I'm your host, the counselor. And today we're going to be talking about men who are being battered, men who are beaten by their women, their partners. And I think we do need to look at this because it's actually increasing, and we need to understand why it's increasing. We have discussed at length men who beat women, which is much more common, much more common. However, the studies and research indicates that violence against men is increasing as well. There's approximately 830,000 men they fall victim to domestic violence each year, which means approximately every 40 seconds somewhere in America a man is battered. And according to the National Violence Against Women survey, while more than 1.5 million women also fall victim each year, let's make it clear that women are much more impacted by this violence than men. However, we should be concerned that violence, period, is increasing in society. And we do have to acknowledge that there is domestic violence against men, and the research says that it is increasing. And what we know about domestic violence is it's not about the size, the gender, or the strength. It's really about abuse, control, and power, and getting out of dangerous situations and getting help, whether you're a woman or a man being abused. Now, considering there are over 4,000 domestic violence programs in the U.S., we do need to acknowledge that when it comes to men, there are very few of those programs that offer services for men in comparison to women. So, where do men go? Where can they turn for support? Services are not being offered for men as they are for women, and that's for a number of reasons. I mean, in general, society doesn't believe that men are really being abused by women. That's the general perception, right? Because they're men. The perception is that because they're men, they're stronger physically than women, so it only makes sense that there's really no problem there. However, that's not the truth. That's not the truth at all. The numbers are saying that more men are being abused as the years go on, and we need to look at this. See, domestic violence against men is very similar to domestic violence against women. It does come in the form of physical abuse, emotional, verbal, and financial abuse. And similar to women, the partners, they will withhold approval, appreciation, or affection as punishment. Even there are times where they will criticize or name call or shout, become very verbally aggressive. And there are times when the partner will take away their keys or some money as punishment. And there will be times when there will be threats to leave or to make them leave, right? And it could get so extreme that the partner can threaten to hurt a family member when they want to retaliate against the partner. There has even been reports of the female partner threatening to kidnap the children if they leave. Right? Like, think of a partner who has children. The woman has children, and she decides, listen, you know what? No, I'm going to take these children from you. And see, they understand that they have the power of the courts in most situations. At least 75% of the time, women do have the power. And the numbers may be higher. They have the power because they're generally perceived as the primary caregivers. And the truth is, they are the primary caregivers. But there have been reports that women use this to punish their men. They punish to take them away or to take them to court. Some women have even said that they're going to take their children and move out altogether and end the relationship, which is a threat. Which they know the men might be vulnerable. They're attached to these children. See, men have done this for sure, but women do it as well. There have even been instances where women have threatened to abuse or hurt their pets. A man could be really attached to his dog, and some of them get so angry and frustrated they threaten to hurt the dog or to get rid of the dog or to put the dog in the pound, which is an emotional thing for men. This is emotional abuse when you know that, a dog's a man's best friend. Don't mess with that dog. Because if you mess with the dog, he's going to lose it. But the point is, doesn't matter because she's going to tear him up anyway. She don't care. She obviously has the strength behind her to say, listen, I've had enough. I'm going to get you. I don't like what you're doing, and I'm going to use this pet against you. And sometimes women will go through your things, get into that spying or accuse you of cheating. And there have been reports that some women take that to the next level. They harass the men about affairs they think the men are having. They go off, very accusatory, and it gets aggressive. The throwing, the shouting, the violence. It takes it to another level, the relationship, where the abuse is just rampant. And there's even been times where houses have been damaged, furniture destroyed, holes in the walls, breaking appliances, throwing out items of their partner that they value, just going off. And in some extreme cases, wielding a gun or a knife in a threatening way. Now, some of you might have been in a situation where a family member have gotten a little bit violent. Some of us know of some family members, some aunts, who are quick to pick up a knife. And a lot of them say, well, it's defend against these men. And in some cases it is. And then there's some cases where it's not. Some of you just pick it up because that's something that you do, your aggression. It's not just about feeling threatened, it's about threatening, not being the victim on a defensive end. It's being the aggressor. You might feel that that's going to control that man. He ain't going to get near you if you have a knife or a weapon, something in the way, or if you want something done. Hey, we don't see women in these roles, but it does occur. It does happen where they use this power. It's almost like a bullying technique. And there are times where women will hit, kick, shove, punch, bite, spit, and throw things when they're upset. We've all seen it, but we take it for granted that it's okay and you know what, it'll work itself out. But it's a pattern of behavior, and there are children watching this behavior. Some of the men, truth be told, that aren't beating their women have to deal with it. They have women in their lives that have a tendency to lose it. It's not always one-sided as we would like to believe. There are men out there who do not go at their women and retaliate. They know there's consequences. They know, number one, could you imagine you being a man and if you feel that society is against you when it comes to women, as far as the violent, right, part of it, in the sense that if you know that you'll be put in jail and you don't want to spend any time in jail, you're not going to retaliate. You're not do anything. If anything, you might stay in that relationship for a long period of time because you feel guilt or you feel powerless. You feel you're being controlled, and you don't think society is going to help you because they'll look at you as the aggressor. See, they might look at you when the officers come to the house. They might take you away because, especially if you have children and they know, wait a second, who's the primary caregiver here? We can't take her away. She got kids. She got to look after these kids. So let's remove him from the situation. So we tell him to get out the situation, which the aggressor may be the woman, but that's not what may be presented. There's a lot of bias when it comes to law enforcement, but we are not making excuses for women or men. We're saying that it happens on both sides. Definitely not to the extreme that men batter women, not at all. But there are elements out there, women who do not play, and they take matters into their own hands. Not every man's a big burly. No, a lot of men out there are aggressive, but there are men out there who do not engage, who are abused, and we're not just talking about physically. We're talking about emotionally as well. Now, we need to clarify there are some differences between men. And we have to distinguish these factors between battered women and battered men. See, men are more likely to be embarrassed by the abuse, making themselves less likely to report it. Think about that. What will people think if they knew I let a woman beat me up? And I don't want to be laughed at. No one would believe me. It's just not plausible. People do not believe that women will beat on a man, right? And while women who are abused are more likely to be pushed or shoved, beaten up, or threatened with a gun, the women who do the abusing are more likely to throw something, kick or bite, or hit a man with an object, right? Or threaten with a knife, or even actually use it. There's a lot of stabbings out there, all right? A lot of stabbings. Women will stab a man. That's their go-to when it comes to the abuse. That's the go-to weapon, right? And one of the most important differences that we need to acknowledge is that women who batter may have a greater ability to use the system. As I said earlier, that is the advantage that they hold. Systemic abuse can occur when a woman who is abusing her husband or her boyfriend threatens that he will never see the children again if he leaves or reports the abuse. Right? That right there is control. A man caught in this situation believes that he has no matter what, he has no choice. Whether it's the girlfriend, the wife, this man believes he's caught in a situation. And the court is going to give her custody or be on her side. And this greatly limits his ability, as I mentioned. Well, many men, believe it or not, suffer in silence. They don't know what they're going to do. However, there are things that they can do to get some help. You see, there is a domestic abuse helpline for men. It's the only one the nation offers that support and help men find resources. And this is very specific to men. It's a nonprofit help. And see, what the helpline does is it actually lets the men know that they're dealing with a situation that is not their fault and it's not acceptable. See, the domestic abuse helpline can be accessed by calling 1-888-7-HELP-LINE. That's 1-888-743-5754. So if you're being abused, you need to call this number. You need to reach out. This is in US and Canada. This number is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The advisors and support that men will receive will basically let them know that abuse is about power and control. Regardless whether you're a man or a woman, it's not all right. And I'm going to say that if you are in a relationship, period, man, women, transgender, gay, lesbian, everyone, I'm really urging you to call 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. And this is the National Domestic Violence Hotline, right? And if you're deaf, you're going to have to call 1-800-787-3224. And this hotline is staffed as well. And this is about advocacy, right? And these advocates can answer some questions and discuss safety options and connect you with resources in your area. And it's totally anonymous. And so I'm saying that get a hold of someone, call this line, talk to someone if you have some concerns. But for men who are being abused by their women, they have to take the steps to stop the abuse. They have to stop it. They got to try to find ways to stop it. You know, and how can they do that? First of all, they can never allow themselves to be provoked into any kind of retaliation. And often we will tell men if they have to be in an argument, do it in a room with 2 doors so that you can leave. A lot of the times a woman will block the door. The man will try to move her, and that will be enough for him to get arrested. Think about how that sounds to a police officer. Oh, she locked me into a room and I couldn't get out. And you know, that officer might look at you and say, "Are you serious? You're in denial. This can't be happening. A big guy like you, what is wrong with you?" No, he's not in reality, so we got to take him away. And they do. Also, if you're a man, you need to document everything. Go to your doctor and tell him what has happened. Even if he doesn't ask how you were injured, you have to take some photographs of your injuries and make sure if the police are called that they can take a report and get a copy of the report for yourself. You actually have to be protecting yourself. You have to come up with some documentation because generally no one's going to believe you. No one. Some people who want to believe you might not believe you, especially if they have this stereotypical behavior in their head that it's just the man who does the abuse. They might not listen to you at all. So you need to make sure that you get some documentation to back your case up because this could be happening frequently. And you want to make sure you protect yourself. Work with an advocate from a domestic violence program to get a restraining order. Not only will this help protect you from an abusive partner, it will also allow you to ask for temporary custody of your children in order to protect them from the domestic violence. And as the counselor always says, get counseling so you can start healing and get legal advice. You're going to have to talk with your family and friends. You might feel embarrassed, but you have to talk with them if it's getting out of control, period. Talk with your family and friends who can help support you. Believe it or not, they will understand. Abusers are good at making you feel isolated and alone, but you're really not alone. You know, you have to understand that the biggest hurdle you will face is finding someone who will believe you. And if you are believed, you can get help. And that's why you need to call these lines. You need to call these 24-hour lines if something's going on. You're not going to be able to say once you're sitting in the cell, nobody listened to me. You have to take action. You have to take some steps. You're not going to get excuses afterward, oh, I didn't know. When you get some information and educate yourself, you're going to protect yourself. And if you're in an abusive relationship, you have to try to find your way out of it. I think one of the biggest problems is when we try to convince other people that we can change them, right? Oh, don't worry, she'll calm down through time. You know what? I'm just going to keep to myself. I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to try and avoid her because she flips out and gets mad easily. Well, that's not living. That's living under the threat. That's not being yourself. That's not happiness. That's not even a relationship. That's not balance. Basically, that's hiding, avoiding. And if you want to be free in a democracy, you have to understand that you have to matter. You do not avoid people who are violent or aggressive. That's not going to work. Running away is a term that it's not running away. It's basically planning your way out of the situation because you're not changing anyone. And we know there are women out there who have a streak you don't play with. They will do something, even be passive aggressive. They might not be right up in your face, but they will get at you when they want to. And they are very aware of societal norms. This behavior is becoming more and more prevalent. I mean, they even have a term for it called IPV, intimate partner violence. And what we want to understand about the IPV, not the STD, but the IPV against male partners, motives and reasons we need to start understanding. We need to explore and analyze some factors. We need to talk about the expression of negative emotion, self-defense, control, right? Jealousy, and a tough geese, right? We need to get into depth about this IPV. And we need to look at it a little closer because the term is being used out there, and I don't think people understand why women are doing. We talk about why men do it. We have to talk about why women are getting to this point. And this intimate partner violence is very problematic. Having some understanding about the motives from women behind this IPV is quite interesting. Why they perpetrate these physical acts, psychological and sexual aggression, and apply this coercive control towards their partner. When we talk about motives, let's be clear what we mean. And what it really means is these underlying psychological processes that impels people's thinking, their feeling, as well as their behavior. We need to understand that woman's motivation for aggression against intimate partners have been organized into two categories: defensive or reactive motives. And when you think of defensive, think of motives for aggressive behavior that have been reactive, responding to a perceived threat such as defending themselves when attacked, over proactive, which is the aggression that is initiated with the goal of dominating, controlling, or threatening, or even bullying someone else. And this goes beyond simply defending oneself. There's goals here. That person has goals. It's goal oriented behavior, such as anger, retaliation, and attempts to control the partner. 40% of women who were arrested in 2006, even, studies showed that the primary negative emotion associated with this aggression was anger and frustration. Women who were arrested indicated they were experiencing uncontrollable anger. This was the primary reason why they found themselves in jail, because they were very angry and frustrated at their partner, and it became uncontrollable, and they felt like they were having an out of body experience and they could not control their emotions. This negative emotion has overcome them. And in cases relating to self defense, 75% of the participants in a recent study indicated that self defense was their primary motive for the violence. Basically, these women had indicated that they became violent in defense of themselves from their partners. The self defense is a frequent motive. It's not surprising given the majority of women who experience IPV from their partners, intimate partner violence. And when we talk about intimate partner violence, remember, it's not just women who are becoming violent. No, a lot of them have tried to defend themselves and they became violent as a result, of defending themselves, right? Like 40% of women who actually were arrested, according to the study, said similarly to the negative emotions that they were arrested because they were trying to defend themselves from their partners. And when it came to control, some women use the intimate partner violence as an attempt to control their partners, right? They threaten to use violence to make their partners do things they want them to do, to gain control over their partner, to get them to do something or to stop doing something, or to make their partner agree with them. A lot of women have said they use violence to get control over their partner. And basically, they feel empowered when they behave aggressively against their partner. And sometimes they have indicated that this power comes from society telling them that women are powerless in many instances. So they've gained control over their partner in the relationships using IPV. And we have to be clear, while some individuals have used aggression to increase their feelings of control or power, Others attribute their aggression to a lack of control over their emotions and themselves. Women who are arrested, right, for IPV felt like they were losing control, losing self control. Because your partner provoked you or pushed you over the edge, because you didn't know what to do with your feelings, you resorted to aggression. And see, one common element when it comes to IPV, right, intimate partner violence, is jealousy. Jealousy is big. Jealousy is another common motive for women, right? When they get jealous. Jealousy is a significant predictor of women's IPV, right? When their partner is cheating on them to prove their love to their partner, this motivates their violence. As well, it triggers their anger. Think about it. You have a partner, and your partner's out there messing around on you, and you're jealous, right? You can't take it. So women, they react and they get aggressive. They get a manipulating state of mind, right? Passive aggressiveness. However, it turns to abuse. And it makes sense in a lot of the cases that someone's going to lose control where they don't feel they have control. Their partner's out there running around and they don't feel that they can control that partner. So what do? They react. They get at them. And it's quite common. I mean, I've seen people beating on their partners. Women too. Women, see, this is the thing. Women, I've seen them, and I'm talking about in the family, like aunts, who, when their partner's messing around or they suspect messing around on them, they won't be afraid to go upside their man's head, right? They'll slap him right across the face. If you've ever seen that, it's kind of disturbing. You get awestruck because, first of all, you don't expect to see that. But I've seen an aunt slap a man, and the man is taking it because that's what they're supposed to do. But what happens is this man might take it, he might yell, scream, push back a little bit. However, it's almost like he's expected to take it because he's been caught. So he'll get slapped upside the head. He'll deny, but he won't get angry and leave the relationship. He'll stay in the relationship for whatever reason. But the point is that because of jealousy, she's gotten to this point where she's had enough. She's taking it out on him. She knows he's wrong. He knows he's wrong if he's done something. And he realizes, that there's something terribly wrong. But you know what's really scary? If you see a smirk on his face. I've seen it where I've had an uncle get slapped across the face, aunt lose control, and then I look, and this doesn't happen in all cases, but then when I did see his face, I seen a little smirk. And it's almost like these two were playing with each other. See, these relationship dynamics, they're very complex. And I mean, they're so complex that you need some support, some counseling, some advice, some therapy to deal with it because there are psychological games that are being played out. And it can terribly get out of control. But there are people who manage their relationships this way. Right? We all like to believe that some just get jealous, have a fight, and we're all walking out the door. But no, sometimes that's the game that they play. Right? So when the women are being responsive or aggressive, they may find themselves in jail. But a lot of the times, most often, the men don't report it. They don't feel that for a number of reasons that we mentioned. But sometimes they're out there messing around for their own reasons, and they got someone at home, and they like to see the women trip out. That's not an excuse. They like to see the women get aggressive to show their love. See, we like to say the women are doing it because of the love. That's one part. But also the men are doing it to get the reaction. In some cases, not all cases. But when you see these reactions, you go, wow, that's deep. But for a young person, that could be traumatic. Very traumatic experience to watch this interaction. So this is what I'm saying. If this is going on in your family, be careful because the young people are watching. And these behaviors, there could be a transference, right? Where they start to absorb and model this behavior as they get older because they feel that this is the way relationships are supposed to run. And it's not true. They're not supposed to run this way, of course, but this is what happens. But when it comes to jealousy, oh yeah, right? Women can get violent. They could get manipulated. They could get passive aggressive. But this is one of the motives behind the IPV. And we got to talk about the tough geese, putting up that tough front. Most women who use intimate partner violence are also victims of aggression from their partners. Let's be clear about that. In a recent study, 95% of women experienced coercive control, and 53% were sexually victimized. A woman may use aggression to convey this message to her partner that she's not playing, she's not to be messed with, and that he better take her seriously, or there will be consequences. Violent consequences if he tries to hurt her. That is the truth. A lot of them are just putting on this stuff to keep themselves in check, to make sure that I gotta set the standard here. I'm getting tired of this foolishness. So it's not like they're just acting out generally for no reason. No. A lot of them have to put up some resistance, pushback. Let that partner know that this is too much. I can't deal with it and I'm not going to put up with it anymore. This is serious. This is how serious I am. I'm not playing no more. I've had it. So I'm going to do what I have to do. This is the tough geese. This is where they show how serious they are. And studies really have shown only a small, limited amount of women use IPV for purposes of intimidation, right? To make their partner scared or afraid. Only about, 11%? And only 8% of that is physical aggression. And some contributing factors to the IPV. Why are these women doing it? Well, some would say that substance abuse is an issue. Alcohol and drug use have been found to contribute to the IPV for women, as well as men, but for sure women in this case. In addition, women have expressed abuse during their childhood or even as an adult. Some women say that the IPV is due in part to past relationships, the aggression that they have experienced in prior relationships. This abuse that they received in the past, they have actually tried to change the situation in their current relationship. So what they do is they go on the aggression because they felt that they were being victimized before. So now they're not going to be victims anymore. So any foolishness, they're not taking it. So they're taking it to another level. They no longer choose to be the victim. So they feel that it's either them or you. And it's not going to be them. So if they've experienced this prior violence, their intent is to make sure that that past relationship does not reoccur. So let's be clear on the motives on why women engage in this IP. However, if we're very clear on this, we're going to understand that there's the expression of negative emotions because their partner said something that hurt them, because they became angry, because they wanted to let him know he couldn't get away with mistreating them. They were frustrated, fed up with his behavior. As well, control is an element to make their partner do things they wanted them to. An example would be using that control. So if you wanted your partner to give you money or something for your children or for yourself, so you used it to get that done, to achieve your goal, right? Or you couldn't stop yourself. You felt that you had to do this to be in control, to feel that you had control in your life. And because you tried to control this individual, that was the only way you felt that you were surviving, that it was either him or you. And then, there are women who do the tough geese, right? A smaller percentage will do it to harm their partner, right? To intimidate the partner, right? Or even if they feel better after a fight, or to even scare their partner, right? And some of the indicators were that women were under the influence of drugs in some cases, right? The use of drugs or substance abuse was an indicator, was a factor when it came to the aggression or the violence. And there were elements of turning that person on, right? It turns a person on when they feel attracted to a person that they can control. It's actually sexually stimulating to some women to be able to control their men. However, in the majority of cases, the reason for the IPV is for the women to have the men take them seriously. Another motive for the IPV was basically self defense, to defend themselves from their partner, to get their partner to stop hitting or hurting them, or because they knew that there was a beating coming or they were threatened and they had to retaliate. They were possibly dealing with a partner who was under the influence, who was constantly threatening or heavy handed. So they felt in defense of themselves, they had to take this action, right? They didn't want to keep dealing with the beating anymore. And of course, there's the traditional jealousy. It's a big one because you thought your partner was unfaithful or they actually were unfaithful, right? Because they were jealous, they felt that they had to retaliate. There had to be some consequence for this jealousy or perceived jealousy. One way or another, it was a very strong emotion that led to the IPV. And when we talk about perpetration, we're talking about the woman, their agenda, right? What they're imparting on their partner. But the victimization is what their partner does to them. So when we use the terms physical aggression perpetration, we're talking about the aggression that the woman has against the man. But when we're talking about physical aggression victimization, that's what the man's doing to the woman. And when referring to the psychological aggression perpetration, that's the games that the woman will play on the man to get at him. You know, manipulation, being holding the kids hostage in the sense that using them as a weapon, right, in the relationship to harm their partner psychologically. So, as we conclude this podcast, we have a general understanding that the motives behind IPV would be number one, anger and frustration that a woman may feel with regards to their partner. They've had enough. They're fed up. They don't want to put up with it anymore. And they felt that they were at their wits' end. Enough was enough. The second one was self defense, you know, in defense of many things, defending themselves from their partner's aggression. They no longer wanted to be seen as victims anymore, so they did retaliate. And the psychological aggression was not really pronounced. Basically, they found that they weren't really using a lot of psychological aggression because they really didn't want to upset their partner. However, some women used control, right? To get things that they wanted from their partner, they used aggression to control their partner. As well, responses to jealousy, whether it's perceived or actual events that were validated, women hit and harmed their partners because of this feeling of jealousy, which is quite common in relationships. When it came to sexual aggression, unwanted touching, attempted rape, or actual rape or sexual assault, women retaliated. They became aggressive, trying to get the partners away from them or trying to defend themselves in that sense. But women, more often than not, were not the perpetrators, they were the victims. So their aggression was in response to their partners trying to force themselves on them. Unwanted behavior, simply put. So it's just a response to unwanted behavior. It is very rare for women to impart sexual aggression on their partners. Women are significantly more likely to be victims of sexual aggression than to perpetrate this sort of behavior. Well, we've covered some good ground here today, and I want to say thank you to my listeners. I hope you have a general understanding of why women beat men. And it happens out there. We cannot overlook it for sure. It's becoming more and more concerning. And the research shows that despite 75% of physical aggression being perpetrated by men, there are increasing numbers of women being violent and aggressive towards men. So, either way, violence and especially IPV in relationships is not acceptable. So, if you're being victimized or you're perpetrating, you're going to have to get some support because it's not acceptable. No one should be hurt, harmed, manipulated, and controlled in any way. That's not what relationships are about or should be about. However, I want to say thank you again and be like the wise old bird and spread the word. Take care of yourself.